Good afternoon, everyone. Just give me one moment while we admit everyone. There's two more joining. We'll begin in just a second.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi,
Hey.
Finley.
Just one moment. Okay, I think that's everyone in from the waiting room. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Finley Johnson. I'm the COO of the Association for Electronic Music. We are the not-for-profit trade body representing electronic music, and we're seeking to promote and preserve the best of electronic music culture and bring members together as a community to solve issues and ensure a vibrant future for our genre. As part of this, we're always looking for ways to share best practice and raise awareness around different issues. And so part of that process today means that we've invited David Pereira to basically do a workshop on the value of lyrics. He's a licensing manager at Unison and a music lawyer, and he's working today as part of BELEM, and I will let him explain now what BELEM is and what we can learn from him today. Over to you, David.
Thank you very much, Finley. Can you hear me well? It's okay? Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Finley, and thank you, everyone. So, although being a music lawyer and being licensing and international manager at Unison Rights Barcelona, which is an IME, as you all know, a private collective management entity, anything that I'm going to tell you today, or everything that I'm going to tell you today, does not constitute any legal advice. This is just for the recording. So I will send you this information. Finlay will make it available after the webinar at AFAM's website, I think. So it will be fully available there, the presentation and the slides. And as I will tell you, I think in one of the last slides, Unison is totally available for separate mentoring sessions to music publishers or 360 companies that are part of AFAM as part of the BELEM project funded by the European Commission. So thank you very much, Finlay, and thank you, everyone. I will start the presentation about lyrics because it's not that common topic and people normally don't see it as like a big source of revenue. So we normally say that books have translations, films and TV have subtitles or dubbing, opera subtitles or supertitles live and online. But commercial and non-commercial music is far behind the other art forms when it comes to overcoming the language barrier. That's one of the main reasons for the creation of BELEM, which stands for Boosting European Lyrics via Entrepreneurial Monetization. So we at Unison are in charge of the capacity building webinars in which we try to explain what are lyrics, how you can monetize them, their story, what are the main sources of revenues. But the first things first, we have to start with the project, with the consortium. So the overview of BELEM. BELEM, basically, as I told you, stands for Boosting European Lyrics and their Entrepreneurial Monetization. And the main intention of the project is to foster the licensing, aggregation, distribution, exhibition, and translation for a meaning of music lyrics. We'll go through each one of these topics later. And another big objective is to greatly increase the monetization of European lyrics and lyric translations for meaning. Although I'm saying here European, naturally, if you are in other parts of the world or your companies are set up in the US and etc., you have to read it mutatis mutandis. So this is mainly done mainly done thinking about European stakeholders. Nevertheless, it's normally applicable with some minor changes to other positions of the globe. So our main intention is to benefit the audience, leading to increased language diversity and understanding globally, translated lyrics crossing and breaking borders, both in digital and virtual, as well in live and in concert formats. So this is not an utopia, not the company, but the utopia, the dream. This is the future that we want really to create in a 4-year project. So the idea is for the lyrics and lyric translations for meaning being distributed globally. Virtual and live concerts will be produced with subtitles, with native languages there, languages that are often forgotten, that are not used that much as Spanish and English, will be like highlighted and have the possibility to be understood all over the globe. And that's basically the last point. So why the intention of building something involving lyrics and translations for meaning. We understood from several surveys and studies that the European member states CMOs and music publishers were not participating in nor benefiting from the existing revenue streams from lyrics, and they were not and are not prepared for incipient new revenue streams such as lyrics translation for meaning. So basically we focus on this type of four main columns: lyric exhibition, lyric translation, lyric digitization, and lyric synchronization. The goals of the project, as I told you, it's to allow European-based works to be licensed and distributed with lyric translation for meaning, thus legalizing currently unauthorized digital sites around the globe. On the other hand, while we are monetizing, or the publishers are monetizing these views through new digital accounting and technological means, we are expanding the business models for European works. I know that I'm putting a lot of focus on music publishers, but as you'll see, the project has several open calls, and there will be open calls for also labels or recording producers to apply. So I'm talking a lot in this about music publishers, publishing rights, and this will highlight a lot things about the publishing rights, but music producers or labels can also apply to open calls that the project have. Okay, so we'll go there in a few slides. So this is already explained, and translation for meaning. I was talking a lot about translation for meaning, but it's important to note that in the international music scene, most of European languages are really not expanding, not understood in other countries. And I'm Portuguese. I'm from Lisbon, and I know that the Brazilian Portuguese is somehow spread all over the world, but we don't have translations for meaning for Brazilian Portuguese or Portuguese. Or for instance, I lived in Barcelona. I consider myself half Catalan, and I see how low the understanding of Catalan is when we have to translate Catalan into other languages. So there is a real problem in translation for meaning. And we have YouTube closed captioning, which is not the same thing. It's like a machine. It works good, but it works good mainly when it comes Spanish, English, English, Spanish. So when you have minor languages or languages that are not that much used by the end users, the algorithms are not capable of delivering true, like accurate for meaning translations. And we see the power of translations in growing the repertoire, such as we've seen with Despacito, also with it was YouTube closed captioning, and also with Justin Bieber chorus, meaning that it expanded from one Spanish title to a global English title, or from one English title to a Spanish understandable title. So we understand and we believe, and this was our assumption, that although there was the closed captioning, it was not that accurate in terms of putting the meaning of the words, the meaning of the lyrics, the meaning of what the authors have said. And as the director of World Travel and Tourism Council said, the biggest language in the world is bad English. I'm one of the guilty ones here. Sometimes I invent some words, or I adapt it from Portuguese. So a translation for a meaning, in our view, will result in European cross-lingual understanding of songs in local languages and success from the cultural as well as the trade perspectives globally. This will bring value to the European economy. So who are the partners of the BELEM project? So it's AME, the Portuguese Association for Independent Publishers, then Deezer, Dot Music, Lyric Finds, Nord University, Runda, Unison, and Zevolution. And then we have the core partners, the publishers. The publishers, there's a Portuguese publisher, Lusitanian. We have Independent Digital from Poland, Bardis from Ireland. We have Broma from the Netherlands and from the UK. We have Metatron from Italy, Mars Music, and Flipit from France. Those are the partners of BELEM. Now, let's go into like lyrics and what you all came here today to listen to. So what are lyrics? They are an essential part of a song, and they try to convey a message and emotions that the artist or the author or the songwriter wants to express. Then one key aspect, and it's because I'm a music lawyer, but I like to highlight that copyright law protects the ownership of lyrics, and unauthorized use of lyrics can get you to legal disputes and financial penalties. We all know that the damages in the US can be significantly higher than in the European Union. Nevertheless, in European national courts and also at the European level, we are seeing harsh ends when it comes to copyright infringement. So, history of lyrics. If it's lyrics, basically, as humans have been creating music for thousands of years, and lyrics have been an important part of music for just as long. We have in ancient civilizations such as Greece, Rome, and Egypt, music was often intertwined with poetry. And also, this tradition continued during the Renaissance period, and during the Baroque era, opera emerged as a popular music form, and lyrics played a very significant role. And from the 19th century on, popular music began to emerge, songs became shorter, and lyrics played a crucial role in achieving the goal of conveying a message to the public. And this trend continued to the 20th century, not only with jazz, blues, rock, but also with electronic music. In a nutshell, and going after to the music lyrics rights, lyrics remain a vital part of music, with songwriters continue to use them to tell stories, convey emotions, and communicate messages. So why are the lyrics important? And this is when this is now coming to the monetization part. So lyrics, if you think about them, can be used in a variety of contexts, both online and offline. We can see usage of lyrics. And when I'm talking about usage, I'm talking about copyright protection, and I'm talking about the necessity of people, the need for people to obtain an authorization. And an authorization means a negotiation of royalties or payments. So when I talk about how can they be used, you as businesses can always think about how we can monetize those lyrics. So music recordings, lyrics are often used in music recordings such as CDs, vinyls, and streaming services and digital downloads, live performances, music videos, advertising, but also in television and films, karaoke, websites and social media, and naturally merch. So they are impactful, they are a valuable asset for right holders, and those right holders include songwriters, music publishers, and record labels. Naturally, it would also include artists if record labels are not involved there. So why, or the main reasons why we think that lyrics are important for right holders? Due to revenue generation, and I won't be reading all of the slides. You can read them afterwards when Finlay shares the presentation at the AFM's website. But revenue generation, brand recognition, as lyrics can help create a song brand identity for a songwriter or artist, and also copyright protection. Also, creative expression and cultural significance. So they are important in these 5 sectors, which in a nutshell, it's the ability of lyrics to generate revenue, establish a brand identity, protect their creative works, and contribute to the cultural fabric of society. So what are the rights? Now talking a little bit more in legal terms, what are the rights involved when it comes to licensing and monetizing music lyrics? So as I told you before, to use music or to use lyrics, and you all know it, you are all in the electronic music business, to use lyrics legally, you must obtain, or someone must obtain from you, a permission from the copyright owner. That's like the basic of copyright, Berne Convention. It's like authorization and then you use it. Although we know from the current models that normally users are obtaining first the neighboring rights authorization, then they start to use it, and then they ask the publishing rights owners for the authorization. But nevertheless, you need to obtain an authorization first, and for that authorization there are royalties that are negotiated and paid for. So typically the negotiation goes through the songwriter or the publishing company, or even more typically through the CMO or IME. Just making it clear here that when I talk about RME, I'm talking about rights management entity or independent management entity, which is like a private, let's call it private CMO like Unison. It's an alternative to traditional CMOs. So You can also obtain the rights to use the lyrics through the CMOs or RMEs or lyric licensing companies such as Lyricfine or MusicSmatch. Also, this can be done through obtaining a licensing or option 3 publishers if you do direct licensing with them. Then there are two main rights involved when it comes to licensing music lyrics. There are the economic or economical rights. Those are the patrimonial rights, and they include the right to reproduce, distribute. And when I'm talking about distribution here, I'm not talking about distribution of the master, I'm talking about distribution of the work. So publishing rights. So this is includes the right to distribute, to make available the work to the public, meaning streaming, and also to reproduce and to public perform. And normally the economic rights are transferred to a music publisher. Then you have the moral rights, and the moral rights, we'll see the differences between Europe and the US. The moral rights are not transferable and they stay with the original rights holder. So the types of rights involved in lyrics are generally similar in the US and Europe, as they are both governed by copyright law. However, I'll show you the differences when it comes to each region. So in Europe, as I told you, music publishers and collecting societies and licensing companies are responsible for managing and collecting royalties on behalf of creators when it comes to the use of their lyrics. And also some of the key publishers in Europe, the major ones, including Sony, Universal, and Warner, they can do like option 3 direct licensing. Additionally, you have many regional collecting societies conglomerated in hubs, such as the Harmonia hub, which we really don't know if it still exists, the ICE hub, the Polaris hub, and like RMEs like Unison or conglomerates like Mint. Then, when it comes to moral rights, what are moral rights? I think you all know them. It's the right of a creator to be referred as the one from whom the work has emanated, let's put it like this, and to be recognized as the author and to control the use and modification of the lyric, translation, adaptation. Also, it includes the right to prevent others from using the work in a way that would harm the creator's reputation. So, moral rights are a type of intellectual property that protect the non-patrimonial or economic interests of the creators of the works. So, as I told you, there are differences, and in the United States, moral rights are not as well established as they are in Europe. The US Copyright Act does not explicitly recognize moral rights, although they are acknowledged in some specific areas of law, such as the Visual Artists' Rights Act and the Lanham Act. VERA provides certain moral right protections for visual artists, and the lyrics, as I tell you in the next box, are not protected by moral rights when it comes to musical works. And I had the opportunity to discuss a lot the question of moral rights in the US with Kurosh at the IMSCBs, and there are really big differences, as you'll see, between the US and Europe. Because in Europe, due to the fact that creators benefit from moral rights, they have the right of attribution, so they have the right to be identified as the creator of a lyric. They have the right of integrity, meaning that they have the right to object to modifications of the lyric that would harm their reputation, and they have the right of disclosure. Besides those rights, also, and respecting the rightful rights, sorry for the redundancy, of the ones who have gained control of the lyrics, the moral right gives the power to the creator of a lyric or of a melody to withdraw anytime in the life of the copyright term, anytime in the life of copyright term, the author of the lyric or the author of the melody can simply say, as the author, I want to take the work out of circulation. And this doesn't mean that the author doesn't have to identify the rightful people who have obtained in good faith the music publishers who have published the music, or labels that have paid to use the music lyric in their recordings. But it's a very, very strong positioning. It's the withdrawal right that the creator can serve. So what I'm telling you is that basically each use needs an authorization, but there are exceptions. The exceptions to the rule are normally, as you all know, the Creative Commons licenses, and there are several types. So this may constitute an exception, meaning that when I say exception, I mean that you don't need to get permission from the right holders to use the lyrics. In the US, there is a main difference between the US and Europe. In Europe, we have a closed catalog of exceptions. So outside that closed catalog of exceptions, which then it should be added with the three-step test of the Berne Convention, outside of that catalog, there is no like fair use stuff. Fair use doesn't exist here. In the US, the fair use is determined on a case-by-case basis, and it takes into account factors such as the purpose and nature of the use, blah, blah, blah. In Europe, it's not the case. It's not fair use. There is a closed list approach, and besides that closed list, you have to respect the Berne Convention three-step test. What's the three-step test? I think this can be like valuable information in the future for you when you are using lyrics and you are trying to understand if you need to obtain a license or not and what can you do with it. So the first thing that you need to check in Europe is if the usage that you are doing, it's included in the list of exceptions, for instance, parody or any other exceptions, and pay attention that exceptions flowing from the European directives are not harmonized. So it may happen that in a certain country there is an exception, like the parody exception, and in another country it's still to exist. So you have to look at your specific jurisdiction, or where are you planning to use the music or the lyric, and you have to look if it's included in the catalog of exceptions. And then you have plus to respect three steps. The first one, it's the use must be limited to certain special cases, meaning that it must be for instance, educational, scientific, or research purposes, or be included in one of the exceptions of the catalog. Then the use must not conflict with the normal exploitation of the work. Imagine that you have the parody exception and that you are using the lyric as part of the parody exception because it's one of the situations in the list. But if you are using it for parody and it's included in the list, you must make sure that although you are using one of the exceptions, that is not conflicting with the normal exploitation of the work. And then besides that, the use must not be unreasonable, prejudice the legitimate interests of the copyright owner. So it's not fair use. It's like very strict conditions for someone to use a lyric in Europe without fitting into one of the exceptions and without respecting the three-step test. Naturally, and I forgot to tell you, there is one other case. So it's the Creative Commons. It's the exceptions, the list of exceptions and Berne Convention three-step test. And then naturally, and you are probably all thinking about it, it's the public domain. If a lyric is in the public domain, you can use it without the need of authorization by the right holder. I would like just to highlight the main legal texts that we use when it comes to understanding music lyrics, and where do we search the rights that are attributed to our right holders, our clients, and how to negotiate and what's the limitation. So there are several copyright treaties, conventions, directives, blah, blah. I just brought you the ones that I think are more important for you to be aware. It's the Berne Convention, the mother of all copyright things that we have nowadays, after the Statute of Anne, naturally. So the Berne Convention, it's the first one. Also, the WIPO Copyright Treaty from '96. It's the first one to introduce the usage in digital age. And then the Information Society Directive, also known as the InfoSoc Directive or the Copyright Directive in the Information Society. This is a very important piece of legislation. And then the very much discussed, mainly about the Article 13, which became Article 17 the European Copyright Directive, which has amended also the InfoSoc Directive, and it was adopted in 2019, and basically it established new rules for copyright protection in the digital single market, including, and what's interesting for AFM, it's the increased liability for online platforms that host copyrighted content. You all heard about the discussion about Article 17. In Europe, we had two pieces of law. We have InfoSoc Directive, which basically said that usage of, I'm simplifying it, but usage of a copyright protected work or making or allowing the usage should obtain an authorization and a clearance by the right holders. But then we have safe harbor provisions, which would be more or less equivalent to the DMCA in the US. We had the e-commerce directive, which basically exempted some players from obtaining the necessary authorizations, and the discussion of Article 13, which people said that the internet was going to end. It's still here and powerful than ever. And you have now Article 17 of this directive. You should look at it and take a look. Other not so relevant provisions, but also important when it comes to usage of lyrics and monetization, is the EU Satellite and Cable Directive, the EU Audiovisual Media Services Directive. And then in connection with the EU Satellite and Cable Directive, it's the 2019 regulation on the exercise of copyright and related rights, applicable to online transmissions of broadcasting organizations and retransmissions of television and radio programs. So international organizations that are very important when it comes to obtaining, for instance, information about who owns a music lyric, or what are the shares that are involved in a music lyric, or who controls the right when you want to license a music lyric. So I've highlighted CSAC, which you all know, it's the International Confederation of Societies of Authors and Composers. Basically, also, they control the so-called CIS tools, which is CISNet, which is a big database with all the information on the musical works from different countries, different CMOs, different music publishers and songwriters. And also they control the IPI database, which is a database with the information on the right holders, not the musical works, but the right holders. That it is, the interested parties information. If you want to have information on ISWCs, as you know, not in opposition, but when it comes to a master or music recording, you have the ISRC, the International Standard Recording Code. When it comes to a musical work and the lyrics, you have the ISWC, which is the International Standard Working Code, which is conferred the administration to CSAC. And then there is the IPI, the interested party information, which is basically it's like a mother. You can only have one, right? It's like the unique number that identifies a specific rights holder, and it's their number forever. And by that number, everyone in the world or in the world of societies knows that if that name or that patronym or that acronym, it appears with that number, with that base number, it corresponds to Finlay Johnson, who is a member of Unison or of SACEM, and the royalties shall be transferred to Finlay or to the ones representing him. Also, besides CSAC, but in close connection, it's BM, which is more like focused on the rights of mechanical recording and reproduction. And WIPO as well. There's a lot of valuable information of on WIPO's website, and it's a United Nations agency. And then the TAUGI. I imagine that some of you are familiar with the TAUGI. Some others may not be familiar with the TAUGI. You won't find many online information about the TAUGI, so that's why I brought you here. Unison is a participant or a member of the TAUGI. It's like basically a group of composed by the main European licensors of publishing rights. So we are talking about CMOs and option 3 publishers and umbrella organizations such as Impel. And basically what we do, it's like we sit every 15 days and we try to discuss and promote harmonization and best practice and transparency in the administration of pan-European or multi-territorial digital licensing, which is very helpful for the licensees, for the DSPs as well. And it's helpful for us because we try to reduce the number of conflicts and create best practices. Why is it important when it comes to music lyrics for people who are trying to obtain licenses? Because if you write Tauji online repertoire definition on your Google browser, you'll be directed to an Excel file or a PDF file where you basically find the information of who controls what in terms of European licenses. So you know that Impel for the European territories is controlled by SACEM. So if you need to obtain a license for a lyric which is included in an indie publisher who belongs to Impel, you need to go through SACEM. And you know that if you want to obtain a license for a Colombian music managed by Psycho, the Colombian organization in Europe, you have to come to Unison. So if you are curious, check for the Tauji online repertoire definition, look at it, because it's an interesting way for you to know from whom you have to get the licenses for the usage of the lyrics. Then what is important also to highlight, and I know Finlay, I have some time, okay, to conclude the main actions at the BELEM project. So for now, there is the co-creation project. Basically, we try to find, or the project tries to find or tries to pair lyric writers with translators and try to create new cross-border works with the assistance from music publishers. And we have like a 5K lyric translation and co-creation fund per project, meaning that music publishers can apply. One of the open calls has already ended, but the music publishers can apply for a 5K fund to translate their lyrics into other languages. You can check more about this on belem.music. It's the website of the project, belem.music. Then we have ongoing open calls for publishers and writers. Like I told you, during February and March 23, BELEM offered publishers 60% of the funding for song translation projects so they could increase their repertoire, as well as the opportunity for composers and translators to get paid for translating songs. And then, like I told you, although the BELEM project is more focused on the European music publishing industry, we are not like abandoning or not taking into account the label side or the phonogram producers or the recording companies. So open calls will be announced very soon in BELEM's website for you to be attentive if you are recording producers, if you are 360 companies to encompass management, publishing, label, etc. Go there, be aware that we'll be opening calls that try to find recording artists to feature them in newly created translated works. So works flowing from the first open calls, and then the labels will get funds to record those translated works. And there will be also 5K per project for label production costs. This normally, we open the call, there is a time for you to apply, and then there's a jury and there's a selection, and feel free to reach me for any doubt. Then we are also doing like mapping diversity and sustainability. I know this is not so interesting in terms of monetization, but we are working with Nord University from Norway in trying to understand the musical languages and traditions in each country of the European Union and how lyrics are being licensed and managed across borders. And then the last one, let's say, column that we have at the BELEM project, it's the communication dissemination project. So what we do live lyric translations at showcase festivals such as the Westway Lab in Portugal, Guimarães, MENT, MMB, Music and Media in Europe. And we also are including European lyric and lyric translations on the Deezer streaming platform and on .music for additional promotion of the project works. Then webinars such as this one for capacity building, to try to explain what are music lyrics, how they can be monetized. And then we'll have a second round, and Finlay will keep you posted on this. because this is the first round of webinar. This is the, let's say, more broad webinar, but then you'll have a technical one more focused on how to upload lyrics, how to insert a music in a tool that will basically capture every word there and put the lyric into a format that will be easily translated, blah, 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 blah. So what we do is at Unison, we deliver these webinars for the BELEM project. And then, and this is important because we only have 45 minutes, then we have Q&A. What we do, and this is all at no cost for you guys or for your companies, please underline that, because it's a project funded by the European Commission. Unison is in charge of doing also mentoring sessions. So let's imagine that Jay, for instance, after this webinar, Jay reaches me and says, David, you explained a lot of information, but I need more detail on this, that, and that. Can we do a mentoring session? So Unison at no cost will do a mentoring session to Jay and try to explain or to understand the issues that you have and try to provide you more information. Also, if you want us to go to Germany and explain to the Music Publishers Association, or to give a webinar or to give a mentoring session, the costs of that travel and accommodation are covered by the BELEM project. So we are open to your requests of giving online mentoring sessions or to give live webinars or seminars to and mentoring sessions as well. So basically, that's the mentoring session stuff that I was referring to. As members of AFAM at Unison, and we are co-chairing with Yuri and with Kurosh, we are co-chairing the CMO working group of AFAM. You probably know me from that group. So you have my contact, you have Finlay's contact. If besides receiving the presentation, if you want a specific mentoring session, or if you want to clarify anything or you need any other documentation, please do reach me or reach Finlay, and we can book a session. And I will end this presentation with my favorite author, with his sentence saying that language never forget is more fashion than science, and matters of usage, spelling, and pronunciation tend to wander around like hemorrhoids. So let's monetize this. And at Unison, we are in charge of capacity building webinars. So let's start talking with you guys. I'm open for, thank you for everyone's attention. I'm open to, oh, there's one question in the chat, or it's just, oh no, okay. It's Sandel saying, but if you have any Q&A, now it's the time to do it. But if you don't want to do it now because you are sharing sensitive information of your company, or you need to discuss it more in private, I'll be happy to have a separate mentoring session to be booked. Thank you, guys.